Man, we got a guest in the studio this afternoon, and it's
Ryan Christopher.
Ryan
My
Christopher.
goodness. We're so blessed to have him here. All right. So let me do a brief intro of who Ryan is so the people know. We know
him.
They don't know.
It's a good dude.
Right. So Ryan has been with the Next Gen, director in Northern Missouri since July 2016. Before that, he youth pastored in Kearney, Missouri at Radiant Life Church. Radiant Life is where Ryan met and married his wife, Emma, in 2015. I'll tell you the story later. I had a hand in that. I'm just saying. I take all the credit, Ryan. Ryan has served in Next Gen ministry in a variety of roles since 2005. In Ryan's role, he oversees Cradle, college ministry, as well as spiritual formation through Christian education in Northern Missouri Assemblies of God Ministries Network. Mouthful. Yeah. In addition to his role at Northern Missouri, Ryan serves the National Youth Ministry Office of the Assemblies of God by serving on the National Youth Advisory Committee as the North Central representative in the United States. Again, a mouthful.
Awesome.
These Assemblies of God have just long titles. Ryan is passionate about Next Gen ministry. I can attest to that.
Yeah, he is.
Discipleship and the future of the church.
Well, and this is what I'm excited to have Ryan on, because knowing him like we do, and his heart for the youth, it's unparalleled.
Yeah.
I mean, unparalleled. So I'm really excited tonight to talk about with Ryan, like his perspectives on, man, the things that are coming against, not just like, hey, every generation has challenges, but man, it just seems like today it's like the kids are getting attacked, man, and spiritually and on all levels. And I know he's got an angle on what's going on and what's been going on. And he's had the experience for years and years observing this stuff, dealing with this stuff, dealing with the kids, ministering to the kids. So I'm super stoked to talk to you.
You're getting dangerously close to me needing to put a neon sign that said spoiler alert.
No. We're good. We're good. No spoilers.
So on top of being passionate about ministry, he's also passionate about his wife, Emma, their two sons, River and Case, and two dogs, Bo and Willow.
Gotta love the dogs, man.
Gotta love the dogs. Gotta give them shout out, Bo and Willow. What's up? Never mind wife and kids, right? All right. So with that, let's cut to the intro.
Let's do it.
Welcome to Deformed Theology, a journey beyond denominations, beyond theological lines to the heart of the gospel of Christ. This isn't about arguing differences, but embracing the unity we have in Him. Together, we'll explore what it truly means to live under the lordship of Jesus, deepening our understanding, edifying His church, and walking in the Spirit, washing feet and flipping the tables of our hearts. Whether you're Reformed, Evangelical, Charismatic, Cessationist, or somewhere in between it all, you are invited to join the conversation. This is for the glory of God, the building up of His people, and the unity of the body of Christ. Let's go deeper. Let's go together. This is Deformed Theology. Welcome to Deformed Theology. Oh my gosh. Again, what an intro. What an intro. All right. We are joined today by Ryan Christopher, as we said there. Ryan, how are you, man?
Great, man. It's a busy season. We're headed into our camp season. So, I'm going to start work on Memorial Day, and I will not take a day off until July 12th.
I gotta be selfish and tell you that this has been a real strain on our friendship through the years, because I don't see you for most of the year.
No, man.
So before we get way too serious, right? I have to take credit, because I was at an unnamed tire shop that hasn't donated money or sponsored us, so they don't get a shout out. Sitting with my children playing and causing a ruckus in the lobby, and here sat this really pretty young girl over there, and she started talking to me and the kids about the church she goes to and all this stuff. And I was like, hey, do you know that Ryan guy over there? Knowing that my brother was looking for a wife at that time. And she's like, yeah, I kind of, and I was like, oh no, this chick knows him, likes him. She's after it. What did I do, Ryan?
Funny.
When I left there, what did I do? Who did I call?
You called me.
That's right. That's right.
I actually forgot about that, but yes, now I remember that.
Yeah. Now you know. Now it's recorded in eternity on the Ethernet, right? All right. So now it's game time, though.
Nope.
Serious question that's not really serious. Ryan, for absolutely no money, when the great tribulation comes, what scriptures will you comfort your friends that were pre-trib? And follow-up question, when the rapture comes mid-trib, will you be humble and gracious enough to not gloat to your post-trib friends?
Wrap your head around that.
Yeah. So here's the thing. I'm credentialed with the Assemblies of God, so I have to take the official stance.
Oh, good. Let's hear
yes,
it.
let's
Yeah.
go.
We are pre-trib.
Okay.
All right.
So,
yeah.
Yeah. So
That's good. Okay.
that's, it's part of the fundamental truths package.
Yeah.
We have
Sure.
16 fundamental truths, right, in the Assemblies of God. And so, yeah. So that's our stance.
Well, and that's the beauty of our joke there, is because that's one of those issues that
It's
pre-mid or
it's
post-
wide ranging.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah, listen, it is not an issue of your salvation or anyone
It would
else's.
have been a problem if I said I don't believe in the tribulation. That's probably
then we would have been.
been.
That's I've been ranting and raving lately on the Christian influencer on the internet. It's with a lot of and are you and fight and you're wrong and I'm right.
Yeah.
And I've been seeing these guys doing engagement farming with the word rapture is not in the Bible ever. And you go, well, yeah. But by implication, Jesus is coming back for the harvest.
Exactly.
Right.
You can call it rapture, harvest. You can call it Walmart. I don't care. It's going to happen.
Right.
I don't care. But anyway, it's all just to get you to click and go. And that's not us. We're not them.
Yeah,
So
100%.
Yeah. So listen, you engaged like thousands, if not more. I don't know. I haven't ever put a head count. Maybe you have, but of teenagers throughout the year. Like you said, you're gone for camp season for months and months and months, and not to mention all of the workup, all of the preparation and setup, and then you guys do interns, and you got to train them up, all that stuff, and then the wrap up at the end of the season, right? Dude, kind of give us an insight there in the youth ministry world. What's going on? What are some like things you're seeing with this current generation compared to when you started a few years ago?
Oh, man. Well, a few years ago is now 20 years ago, which is absolutely crazy to think about. Every time I hear like 2005, 2006, I remember like the music that was popular then.
Yeah.
And I'm like, that song is now 20 years old.
Yeah.
No, it's not. That's so weird,
Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, when I started out back in the mid 2000s, youth ministry was a lot more simple.
Yeah.
I remember when I was an early youth pastor. I mean, even when I was at Crescent Lake, we could put on a huge event, do a bunch of giveaways, say we're giving away an Xbox, give away free pizza, and 300 kids would show up.
Yeah.
I mean, that's just how it was. You give away free pizza and an Xbox today, nobody's coming. They don't care, And so, other things that were different when I started, nobody had smartphones. We had the internet, but nobody had smartphones.
Yeah.
Social media had really just started firing up.
Right.
Facebook was founded in 2003, but nobody really started getting on Facebook till about 2005, 2006. When all of our grandmas got on in like 2010, then it was like the youth moved off of it, right? But then came Instagram. So, so those are some things that I say that to say youth ministry was done a certain way, I really think, through the 90s and early 2000s. And then when social media, smartphones, and all that happened, it shifted youth ministry in a big way.
Yeah.
And so much so that I think this is where, and I'll just go further to say it didn't just shift youth ministry, it shifted the church.
Yeah.
And
for sure.
I don't think that we realized it or recognized it to the extent that we should have. It felt like, if you guys remember growing up in the 90s, I remember March for Jesuses and Promise Keepers. And, our churches were a lot more full. It felt like people the Christian culture was just a little bit more prominent.
Yeah.
And then it's like somewhere 2010 to 2015, it's like the church fell way behind. And we're still dealing with that to this day. But I would say some of the biggest shifts that I see right now is, anxiety and depression and suicide rates among young people are some of the highest they've been.
Yeah. Do you think that's correlated to this social media, the cell phone,
100%.
smartphone stuff? Yeah.
100%. There's a great book out, and I would recommend anybody to read it. It's by Jonathan Haidt. It's called The Anxious Generation.
Okay.
And it's a thick book. It's a textbook, but it will really help you start to understand just how much of a detriment social media has done to our young people.
Mm.
And on top of when you really start to dive into it, uh, young boys, we'll talk about young men, teenage boys. We're seeing anxiety and depression rates among teenage boys in levels that we've never seen before. It's always kind of, young girls have always kind of dealt with this a little bit.
Yeah.
But now we're seeing that begin to climb with young boys. And that Jonathan Haidt traces a lot of it back to when our cameras got, or when our phones got the front facing camera.
Yeah.
And Instagram came out. That's when things started to change.
Yeah.
Because the currency became likes and follows. And so you'll see it. You'll see a young girl post a picture on Instagram. And if it doesn't get the amount of likes that she thinks it should get, that's how she's based her self-esteem, and she'll take that post down.
Oh, so then she feels like she's devalued simply because her post, right, isn't getting the reaction. So then she devalues herself. Right?
100%.
And you know what, all that, like we said, we've been harping on this the past couple episodes of just like, dude, the hatred amongst Christians on social media.
Yeah.
I mean, because, you know, every guy with a microphone gets a platform now. Right?
But it's funny how that works.
Right.
Right.
Some
God
guys that have no business behind a microphone.
what are you saying? But no, in all seriousness, though, the Christian influencer sphere, right? Yeah. And you get, hey, listen, I get that you stand on this doctrine or this practice or this theology, but to profess that is one thing. To come across as I'm better than you and you because I'm right and I know better, man, that's a modern day Pharisee, right? Like you're refusing to listen to Jesus because you're right. You're right. But anyway, I didn't mean to hijack that from the youth stuff, but
no, and we saw probably the climax of that in 2020. Pandemic, we saw the church begin to turn on each other, right? It was vax, no vax, mask, no mask. And then it was also an election year.
Yeah.
And so Facebook was the most toxic in 2020 than I had ever seen it. And it didn't help. There were more people on it because everybody was at home. Right. And so, yeah, man. And I just feel like in a lot of that where the church is just fallen behind in some of these areas, but it's affecting our young people. And, you know, the other thing we can spin off of this, but the other thing I think that affects especially young Christian kids today is TikTok theology.
Oh, yeah.
You have
expound.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You have, well, just like you said, everybody with a microphone has a platform.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you get these people that want to jump on TikTok and talk like they're a theologian or a scholar, and they have zero Bible training. Sure. They just have a thought and an idea and something they heard. But what happens is you have all these young people that are following it and listen to it. And man, it's really that itching ears thing.
Yeah.
You know, our young people today, I mean, we are now, it's so funny. I'll listen to people, and this is how I know we're so far behind in some areas in our churches. And people will say things like, oh, we're becoming a post-Christian culture. I'm like, bro, we've been there a long time. We're now a post-truth culture. You know what I mean?
That's good.
Like, there is. I mean, we can go down the rabbit hole, but we're talking about AI. You know, let's talk about these deep fakes, and I mean, truth is going to become very hard to find the truth. I mean, there are deep fakes out there right now.
Yeah,
like I remember during the NFL season, they would take press conferences, right, of these football players or these coaches, and they were deep fakes, but man, it was that person's voice. It was, and so you sit there and you think about that in these kids are on social media. I mean, most, I'm going to get the statistic wrong, but I believe they said that the average age that a kid gets a smartphone is like 8 years old.
Yeah. Wow.
Jonathan Haidt argues in his book that he wouldn't give a kid a smartphone until they're 16 or 17.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And just because, you know, we all know you don't stop maturing, your frontal lobe doesn't stop developing till your mid-20s.
Yep.
Right.
And so we're handing these kids these devices, and they're connected to everything. I mean, we wonder why depression and suicide rates and anxiety are what they are. It's because our students are watching in real time things happening that I remember growing up, right? If we wanted to see what's happening on the other side of the world, you got 30 minutes. It was the world news,
Yeah.
right? From like 5:30 to 6.
Yeah.
And if you caught it, you caught it. And if you didn't, you didn't. Or it was a newspaper.
Right.
That was the only
Right.
time you knew what was going on in the
Read
world.
about it a week later.
Now, these kids can now live stream mass shootings. They can live stream beheadings.
Yeah.
And we don't think that's messing them up. Dude, it's messing them up.
Well, and you know, so talking like the AI and stuff with the deep fakes and things, it just makes me think instantly Revelation. And, you know, the Antichrist is going to come and do things that look profound and miraculous and all these things. And all the more reason that we need to be grounded and rooted in the word of Christ, know it, understand it, be prayerfully approaching it, but also makes me appreciate men like you with the passion for ministering the gospel to the young people. Cause I've been in youth ministry enough to know that youth ministry is rough. It can be a challenge. Currently, like our youth ministry at Crescent Lake it's a smooth sailing breeze right now, thank God, because we got a lot of hungry kids and it's not once upon a time. And you remember these days, I felt like a bouncer in there trying to help. It was like, what's in your backpack, kid? What are you doing? Why are you trying to fight here? Did you bring drugs here? Really? Like what? Yeah. So we've got it. Let's say we're blessed right now, and I'm grateful for that, but it attests to the work that Pastor Ethan is doing as well with the youth and that you and Pastor David before that were doing. And man, so thankful and grateful for men like you that it's like a NICU nurse, right? You go into a NICU with kids and you go, I could never do this. And you see these like special nurses that just have that. Youth ministers, same way. Let's say this, the ones that are true, faithful, in the word and in the spirit, youth ministers, man, we appreciate you guys. And it's such a blessing, not just to us, but to youth ministry as a whole, because we need it. And the more we talk about this stuff, we go, yeah, man. Yeah. It's much needed. So
I was, Ryan, when you mentioned like Promise Keepers and March for Jesus earlier, and of course I'm flashing back to the 90s and stuff and, you know, being in my teen years and growing up and stuff. And I would run this by and see for your input, but thinking back to those days, you know, and I think you kind of alluded to this maybe, but I'd like to hear your thoughts on it. You know, there was the church, it seemed like the church had, whether it was programs or whatever, it's like, here's what we're doing, you know, and then they made space for the young people to come. Everyone's going to come do the same thing, you know, like I remember being a young man and my dad and you know, men here and young boys here going to Promise Keepers, man. And it wasn't like, okay, this wasn't like hyper tailored to teenage, you know, young men. It was for teenage young men, young adults, old men. It was like, if you're a man, here's what we're doing. Come with us. Let's all do this one thing together. And of course, Promise Keepers was just one example of that. But it seemed like we had more of those. I don't know if you want to call it like a rallying point or something, but it's like, let's all do this. And I just wonder, do you think, like you talked about the smartphone and the kind of the culture now, do you think maybe we've lost some of that corporate cause type of a push in the church? Do you think that it maybe has become too individualized or anything? Or what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah. I have lots of thoughts. I think that what you're talking about is I remember those times as well. I remember being 12 years old going to my first Promise Keepers, or 11. Maybe I was 11. I know I wasn't old enough. And they said, go ahead.
Stuck in the bus.
Right, yeah. The old white and blue bus.
Oh, yeah.
So, I remember. But I also remember, do you remember, I think it was your dad and my dad that were running the men's ministry at the time.
Yeah.
And they would have these men's groups all over the church meeting in homes. And I remember begging my dad to be a part of it. He's like, no, son, you can't be a part of it. And so I would sit on the top of the stairs and put my ear against the door just because I want to know what the men were talking about. So I think there's a couple things at play. Again, this is just my opinion. I think that our ministries have become too siloed in the church. You have, you know, obviously kids ministry, youth ministry, but at the same time, I want to be really careful here because I'll offend some people. One of the ministries in the church that I really don't like is a young adults ministry. Now, I want to be careful here because if we're not careful, young adults ministry becomes youth group 2.0.
Gotcha. Yeah, I see what you mean.
And what happens is if you don't put really good boundaries on it, young adults can now be defined as, well, 18 to 30. Right. And then you have a 35-year-old.
Whenever you move out of your mom's basement.
Right. You have a 35-year-old single guy hanging out with the 18-year-old girls in the church. And that doesn't really make a lot of
That's
sense.
not a good look.
Right.
Yeah.
But not only that, that's kind of the funny side of it. But to scale it back is I believe in a young adults ministry, but I think there needs to be a clear exit point.
Yeah.
Because what will happen is you will have young people I've actually seen it happen. They will leave the church saying, well, there's nothing for me. And I always want to say, well, yes, there is. It's called the church.
The church. Yeah. That's good.
So Barna, and I don't know if it's changed, but a few years ago, they said the age of adolescence has now been extended to age 29. So
are we just talking mental adolescence
and we laugh.
Yeah.
But here's the truth. And I want you to think about some of these patterns. Right now, people are waiting longer to get married and have children.
Yeah.
It's usually it's like 30 something when you get married. And then you start having kids later. Well, now the amount of kids that we're having are less and less because, when you're 36, 37, I mean, I'm a 40-year-old man this year with a 2-year-old. And let me tell you, woo, I don't know how Abraham did it. But at the same time, what we're seeing is kind of the trend is kids come out of youth ministry, which, and I have lots of things to say here because I don't know what the real answer is, but I kind of do. I think I do. And that comes back to what you originally said. So we're gonna take this journey to get back there.
Yeah, do it.
So kids come out of the youth group at 18. We have these great youth ministries. We have these great kids ministries, right? And they come out and they're like, well, what do I do on a Wednesday night now?
Yeah.
I go to big church and and then quickly you start to see, I mean, how many 18-year-olds that graduate that don't go off to college are actually staying and plugging into the church.
Yeah.
And usually what we say is we do one of two things. They either leave or we default them to become youth sponsors. And that's not the healthy thing either.
Right.
Not every college kid should be a youth sponsor.
Right.
And so what happens is if we don't have a clear exit point, so then we say, okay, we're going to start a young adults ministry. And why I believe in young adult ministries is if we don't help push people to grow up and mature, then you'll never see young men raising up and becoming the men of the church.
Right.
They'll just be in this weird limbo of like, well, I'm a young adult.
It's like that failure to launch thing, right?
100%.
Like it's like I'm loaded, it's time, but it's just nothing's gonna,
And a lot of things that we're seeing is college is almost becoming high school 2.0, except for they can drink and they can have party. They can do all these things that they weren't able to do. They have freedom. They're away from mom and dad. But what we're seeing trends is that they will come home from college after their 4-year degree and they move right back in with mom and dad. And then they'll stay at home with mom and dad.
Yeah. Hold on. Time out. My kids. No. Well, my daughter is more than welcome.
Oh gosh, there it is. But they'll stay at home with mom and dad until 28. They'll actually have, I've heard stories of people, 28, 29-year-old men who are making more money than their parents living in their parents' home.
Yeah.
Saving up money to do all these things. Oh, it's free rent. It's free that. And it's like, it's just delaying. So what a lot of what we went through at 18, 19 years old, they're not experiencing until 28, 29 years old. Okay. Now, how does that have to do with anything that you said? What I think has caused this problem is a lack of true discipleship.
Yeah. Come on.
Everybody, we like to use the word busy. We're all busy. But what happened in the 90s, I remember the men in our lives, they didn't care if we were with them. It was like come follow me as I follow Christ.
Mm-hmm.
We were having father-son campouts, and I remember there would be boys in the church who didn't have dads. There were men in the church who would be like,
Yeah.
hey, just come on the camp out with me.
Yeah.
I don't have, my son's grown. And because discipleship, here's what I think happened is we relegated discipleship to programs.
Yeah.
And that's not discipleship.
Right.
Discipleship is doing life with people. And so where I see some of the biggest issues in the church is we actually started cutting all the areas where discipleship was happening.
Yeah.
The majority of churches do not have Sunday school anymore. The ones that were holding on to it, it went bye-bye in COVID. Now there's still a few out there that still do, and I love to see it. Sunday night services are gone. There are now churches that are cutting their midweek service.
I've heard about that a lot recently, even here in town, getting feedback from people that have just started here at Crescent Lake and saying, well, it's hard to find a church that has a Wednesday night service. And now I heard that.
Really?
Like, what? Really?
Yeah.
And it's like, And so it's bizarre to us because, we've always rolled midweek and with Sunday school too. But I guess we're old fashioned in that regard. But it's like, wow, you're really... the idea that there's not a lot of options out there, like there's not a lot of churches out there doing stuff in a week. And I'm sure maybe they're doing like, cell groups or family life groups or whatever.
Options,
they dice up a different way, but that mold doesn't fit every family. You got young kids. It's hard to maybe do, like those cell groups and things like that,
Right.
So let me see if I've got the formula right. Cause I like this. This is good. Like, different age level ministries, not necessarily bad.
Right.
I like the clear exit point idea and like a transitional phase. Like it's almost like you need a sponsor. Like he's leaving the young adults ministry to come downstairs and he's going, what do you do? Well, you grab one of the guys that are down there on Wednesday and go, hey man, come sit with me.
Yeah.
And let's do that. But it all is rooted in discipleship.
100%.
Because if they're not discipled in kids' church, which looks way different than youth ministry, which looks different than young adults, and it's not about just keeping their attention,
right?
Because we all know kids and teenagers, short attention spans, especially now. It's back to the cell phones and all this stuff, right? It's like if you don't, hey, up here, shiny object, right? They're gone. But it's not about keeping their attention as much as building within them the character of Christ, the heart of Christ within them. That way they can transition up and flow into. But you mentioned there's kids without parents doing it, but those of us Christians that have our kids at home, be intentional with your kids.
Yeah, absolutely.
You don't count on public school to train them and teach them. You need to do some of that. Don't count on the Sunday school teacher to train them up in Christ. You need to do most of that. Like that's your job. Do it. And don't neglect it. And then see, because how many of you families have you known that you're like great Christian parents and then you watch a kid run astray as they hit high school, college, and they never come back to church? Well, why is that? Man, I don't want to cast stones at anybody, but there's a lot of thought. The kids got to make their own decision at some point, no matter what you do.
Sure.
So let's be fair there. But yeah, man, if they be intentional, that's the best you can do. They're going to make their decision at one point. Be intentional with your kids. So
100%. I mean, the statistics are there. The number one discipler of a student is their parents.
Yeah.
I mean, that is who disciples the most. And so when you have kids that are coming to church, that they're not in a Christian home, they're already behind the 8 ball.
Yeah.
And so this is why I say, I mean, Titus, right? This is where there is a huge need for men and women in the church it's so funny when I hear people say, well, I'm too old to do youth ministry. I'm like, dude, these kids need more moms and dads than ever before.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because what you said even about Christian homes, and like I said, I've been in youth ministry for 20 years. I have had so many conversations with parents over the years who would come into my office and basically say things like, you're the youth pastor, you figure it out. And it's like, but these are Christian people in the church. And it's like, no, dude, like I'm here to support you. I'm here to help you, resource you the best I can. At the end of the day, your dad or your mom. And, one of the things that I have seen, and I continue to see it as the issue, is we deem so many other things important than church. Listen, you're not going to find a bigger sports fan than me. I mean, I'm in 8 fantasy football leagues in the fall because I have a problem, right? I get it, right?
Yes.
I mean, it's Royals season right now. It's Royals, baseball right now, and I'm there. I'm a big Celtics fan. We're hopefully gonna repeat this year. Anyway, but sports have become God.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And when mom and dad take little Jimmy out of church to do the tournaments on the Sundays,
Yeah.
and he's not attending church, I'm telling you, what we do in moderation, they will do in excess.
That's so true.
And if it's not a priority to us, it's not going to be a priority
100%,
to them.
Yeah.
That's it.
And so, you can miss it. Well, what happens is during tournament season, dude, you'll miss 6 weeks of church.
Yeah.
And the next thing you know, we all know it's hard to get back into that routine when you just missed. And then all of a sudden, we've wanted little Jimmy to get the scholarship and go pro, but what we should be concerned with is, man, I want my son to go pro.
Yeah,
and
what's
loving
most
Jesus.
Yeah, that's it, man.
You know what I mean?
What's important? Eternity, right?
Right.
That hits close to home. April and I have been walking through those waters right now with the boys in competitive league soccer and stuff. And, because team's great, coach is great, love them. They do a great job. And, and they're trying to pull a program together and all that stuff. I get it.
Yeah.
But, when it comes around, hey, we're scheduling, games at, 9:30 Sunday morning. And, we finally had to just be really, really clear in our communication. Like, look, dude, we go to church,
right.
And love the show, but this is what our family values. And if that means you're going to be missing 2 players on a clutch game on a tournament, sorry,
Right.
but it's like, we can either feel guilty for telling a sports coach, a soccer coach, no, or we can show our kids like, it's either that or it's like, hey, you're setting it, a priority, right? You're setting that pattern of like, okay, it's okay to, is it okay to miss this because they need us over here?
Right.
So it's bizarre. Like you're teaching a kid like, oh, it's good to rise up and do what you should, but you're having them do that in the context of missing church.
Right.
So talk about like psychologically setting a bad pattern for a kid. Like, oh, let's go do the important thing, which is not go to church, know? And, but man, it is a lot of pressure for parents to be like, no.
Yeah.
Right.
And some more than others, some people really struggle to say no.
Right.
Some people have no problem with that, but it's a line that we have to, especially in this generation, because everything's moving so fast.
Right.
Parents have got to say like, dude, on this day, man, we're in church, we're worshiping Jesus and we are fellowshipping with our brothers and sisters. And because I talk to my Sunday school about this often. It's like, guys, look, there are believers in the earth that do not have the freedom to come to assemble together to worship the Lord, to study the word, to fellowship with one another.
Right.
They can't just go like, oh yeah, I'm going to go check out a church service today because it's illegal.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Right.
And for us to be like, yeah, I don't think I'm going to put value on this time at church. Let's go play soccer, dude.
Right.
Well, I mean,
right.
Think of the camel through the eye of the needle.
Yeah.
Right. We're rich in terms of world history.
Oh, God.
Even if we're lower middle class, we're still wealthy. 90% of our country lives at a higher level than the rest of the world has ever even dreamed. And we're rich. We're spoiled. So it's hard for us to think about the things that are good. And we're just talking Saturday at our men's meeting, the worst place you can be in life is successful without Jesus leading the way outside of his will and still be successful. Cause then you're never going to look and go, man, I need you, Jesus. But I've got to keep us in that rabbit hole though of the sports. Okay. I've got to shift it. I'm foot on the clutch, bro. I'm shifting gears.
Punch it.
The rabbit hole of sports, man. Because you and I have been talking about this for a little bit, and I don't care if we go the next hour and a half on sports because I'm becoming less and less of a sports fan. Okay, because I'll tell you what made me a Chiefs fan. I know, sorry Raiders fan, right? Like when I was in high school, somebody gave us free tickets. It was a rainy, cruddy day, right? It's really cold. Ended up being freezing rain, but I'm there, and there's 78,000 people that didn't leave They didn't sit down. We weren't winning Super Bowls in those days.
Steve Bono was your quarterback.
Oh yeah, probably somebody, right?
It was rough.
It was, so I'm sitting there with my buddy at this game, and I'm like, wow, this is impressive. Like all these crazy people, nobody's leaving. This is fun. Yeah. But the more I ponder what that really is and what that looks like. Now, do I enjoy sports? Yeah, absolutely. I love watching sports. A lot of fun. Like to play sports, all the things, right? But when you think about, especially in professional sports terms, what it's becoming, it's a cult following. I mean, when the Chiefs lost the Super Bowl this year, I have friends of mine that are Eagles fans, and they're like, dude, so sorry, Bill. I was like, bro, I don't hang my hat on them. Right. I wanted them to win. I don't have an emotional connection. Once the game goes off, my wife will attest that when the game is on, the other reason that I want to get away from it, because it involves my emotion.
Sure.
But why? Why do I care that much what these millionaires do that are making billions for some other guy that owns the team?
Right.
Why do I care so much? It can very quickly become idolatry.
Oh, yeah.
It can steal your heart, your emotion, your focus, and your time away from God, away from what matters, just like anything else, if we allow it to elevate. So my mission, and now this is a slow journey, so bear with me and give me grace, is I want to get to the point where, it's football season. I didn't pay attention to the draft, and I was like, oh, that was you. Oh, yes. So it's
Nice.
like step one in the recovery
step
process,
one.
right? Like,
sure.
I don't want to care. I mean, we're going to go to a Royals game next week.
Sure.
I'll probably put a t-shirt on. I don't know. I don't care.
Yeah.
I could probably name a couple guys just because they've been there a while or whatever.
Sure.
Do I want them to win? Yeah. But I said to say, like, there's too many of us. Even with kids sports, the same. Like you said, it's a slippery slope of like, well, it's just one weekend. And then, okay, now we scheduled another game. We got another tournament. On top of the church thing, though, you see what it does to families. And you got families that are chasing kids to sports. They're spending tens of thousands of dollars a year to go and go watch little Johnny play 12-year-old whatever in another state. And to what end?
Right.
Like the reality is, I mean, sports parents, listen, the statistics of them becoming a millionaire from sports, slim to none. We'll just put it right there. I don't have it in front of me, but it's
even them going to a D1 school. Is not.
Yeah. So, but the statistics on them getting there, having been pushed in sports, whether they enjoyed it as a kid or not, eventually that day will come when they're going to go, yeah, I don't like this anymore, and I'm done. And you spend all that money. Oh, it's my investment. Put it in a college fund for them. Put it in a retirement fund for them. Do something more productive. But I don't know. Thoughts, guys, on idolatry in sports?
I'm going to gripe a little bit.
Yeah.
And this I know this will probably upset some people, but we're talking about church, right?
Okay.
And we're talking about deformed theology.
Yeah.
We're talking about the things that slowly creep in and they begin to corrode and corrupt the way we conceptualize God, his word, and his people.
Time out. Hold on. Guys, have you ever misspoken? Have you ever gotten...
I know I have.
Yeah.
Like, for instance...
Well, you might notice that we're cutting into the middle of this video with our good friend, Ryan Christopher here.
Great guy.
Wonderful guy. Listen, the two of us got a little bit overzealous with some thoughts that were not... they're not wrong.
Right.
But we were coming across...
The wrong way.
Yeah, wrong way. A little harsh.
Or we're coming... We ended up deciding we were coming across a way that we didn't want to come across.
Right.
So we're self-editing, right?
Right. Yeah. We're going to cut it out because we don't want to come across unloving and not in a spirit of gentleness. So with that said, guys, thanks for bearing with us.
Enjoy.
It'll happen again, I'm sure.
And again, like, as we talked about already leading up to this episode too, it's like you got dogma, doctrine, theology, traditions, right?
Yeah.
Like what we're talking about now, it's like, this is like in the traditions.
Yeah,
like we're talking about church traditions thing. Yeah. It's stuff that doesn't matter. It's not going to affect your salvation. I'm going to have preferences. I'm sharing, like, these are my preferences, man. For me, I would not do that.
Yeah.
But then I also get concerned about the culture when I see it becoming more and more and more prevalent. It's like, what are we thinking about? What are we focusing on?
Yeah.
You know? So anyway, gripe ended. I'll get off my soapbox.
As elders, though, let's just state clearly for our people here at Crescent Lake, like, we are not passing judgment on you when you come in here and you're wearing a jersey.
No, it's personal gripe.
It's personal gripe is all it is.
Yeah, we love you. Yeah.
and no judgment, all love. It's not like we're saying thou shalt not. The Bible says, but it's
the
hard.
concern is, where's the mindset?
Yeah.
So as elders, we're not just thinking about like, well, I got to teach Sunday school today, or I'm on preaching rotation, or, this and that. It's like, no, I'm concerned about the heart condition of the people in this church.
So just prayerfully consider what we're
prayerfully
saying.
Considering it. Yeah.
Not us passing judgment.
No, not at all.
Talking about culture, right? And so, sports are a huge part of our culture now in America, right? Like that is just a thing. I mean, we're building, one of my frustrations right now is this whole Chiefs and Royal Stadium thing, right? We're building these multi-million or billion-dollar complexes, and whatever. And like I said, I like sports as much as the next guy, but in going even back to parents who deem sports more important than taking their kids to church. Again, I'm not trying to sound combative, but I will say this. I think, and this is not my original thought. Actually, one of my friends talks about this. He got it from someone else. I'll find the source for you. But there's 3 ways that the church handles culture. Always has been. We attack it. We try to control it, or we try to ignore it.
Yeah.
When all in all, what our response should be is to redeem it.
Yeah, that's good.
It's our job to redeem culture. It's the church's job to redeem culture. So whatever that is, be it sports, be it, music or whatever. We can look at all these different things. Back in the day, back in, hundreds of years ago, the church actually influenced culture.
Oh, yeah, 100%.
You know what
it was a cutting edge.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The church influenced culture. Now it's like we've taken this back seat and we're playing behind, and you see it with students, right? And so, but let's just talk about how just some examples of, let's just use sex, because that's a great one to go to.
Oh, great. Now I got to put the 18 and up explicit lyrics thing on this one.
No, we won't go.
No, go. Do it.
But, in youth ministry growing up, I think all of us grew up in purity culture, right? Sex is dirty, rotten, and nasty, so save it for the one you love.
Yeah.
Right.
Whether
that was intended to be communicated that way, that's
right
or not. That's the way it came across.
Yeah. And then you dive into the whole Jesus is my boyfriend stuff, and which is weird in and of itself. But so we had a couple ways we approach this, right? 1 month of the year in February, we'll do a dating series in youth ministry, but that's the only time we're going to touch it.
Yeah.
And usually when we touch it, we attack it, right? And we're attacking. And then the rest of the year, we ignore it.
Yeah.
Or we try to do what purity culture did, and we try to control it.
Yeah.
And in none of that are we redeeming it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so we're not having these intentional conversations with young people that are dealing with this stuff on all kinds of levels.
Yeah.
It's so funny. It's like, it's so crazy too, the things that we have deemed like the great sins at different times. Like, for the longest time it was don't have sex, and now it's so not that anymore.
Right.
Like, I remember we'd walk around and be, quit no PDA, don't hold hands.
Yeah.
I don't, you can edit this out later, I guess, but I'm almost thrilled now when I see a guy and a girl holding hands.
Right. Yeah. At least it's a clear signal.
Youth group.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
You got your priorities right.
And so we'll sit there and say, don't have sex with your boyfriend, don't have sex with your girlfriend. And a lot of times these kids are like, okay, not doing that, cool, but I'm doing all of these other really crazy things.
Yeah.
And it's because we dance around these things. We don't want to approach things head on in the church. And that's what I think has been part of it. So one of the interesting things, and we can, go down this rabbit hole if you guys want to, but where I alluded to it earlier when I talked about how somewhere we fell behind in the church.
Yeah.
There's really 4 ages we can talk about, right? And one of my friends does a much better job about talking about this than I do. But you had the agricultural age, right? And you were defined by who you were, right? And in the church, we did a really good job with this. who you are in Christ, your identity in Christ, right? After the agricultural age was the industrial age.
Yeah.
And you were defined by what you did. And in the church, we're really good about this because this is where we start talking about calling and what God's going to do in and through you. But then came the information age. And this is where I believe we fell behind because you were valued by how much you know. And wouldn't you know, during that time frame is when biblical literacy began to plummet.
Yeah.
And so this is what it's not about how much we know. But now here's what people still think, we're in the information age. We're not. 2022 started a new age. It's called the adaptive age.
Okay.
It's how well you can adapt because things are constantly changing. I'm telling you guys, we have just begun to scratch the surface of this AI stuff.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And if we are not in front of this as the church, it's going to pose another problem. It's like it
starts here.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
It 100% does. And what's so funny is, like, again, it's different things. I hear people talk about, oh, we got to figure out how to reach millennials. I'm like, bro, that ship's done sailed.
Yeah.
It's so funny, but people talk about Gen Z and they get all freaked out. We're almost out of Gen Z in the youth ministry now.
Yeah.
13-year-olds right now are Gen Alpha.
Yep.
13-year-olds to kids now being born are now Generation Beta. I mean, they got to change that name.
Yeah.
But you know,
Alpha's got a good ring to it.
Yeah.
Right. But you know, so and each generation's different.
Yeah.
But if we aren't careful, I mean, we did miss some millennials. You know, all of us, we're right in that Xennial, right? Where
Sure.
we take on a lot of the Xers, the jadedness, right? But we have a lot
cynical
of
Yeah. Thick skin too, and you know.
Yeah, but we have a lot of characteristics of millennials. But you know,
They gripe about wearing jerseys on Sunday
Right.
mornings and stuff. Just harsh people. I'm sorry, I love you. Wear your jersey.
Right. But then you have Gen Z, which they understand and see things differently, and now you have Gen Alpha. And so, you know, Gen Alpha, I was reading a statistic just the other day, or an article the other day, that said Gen Alpha is going to be the first generation that's non-religious. No religion. They're also the first generation that will grow up in non-conventional or unconventional households.
Wow.
And so, and so I've got some theories, and I don't know if they're right or they're wrong. We right? So we kind of bring this whole thing full circle back to smartphones too. Let's just go back to you're a kid in the 80s and 90s. You go into your grandparents' house. I don't know about you. I'd always go to my grandparents' house. The TV was always on.
Oh, yeah.
No matter what time of day, that TV was on. Why? You ever thought about why? Well, my grandpa was a kid when all he had was the radio.
Yeah.
And they'd sit around and listen to the radio. Right? But then, so when the TV came out, I mean, it was like,
big deal.
Bro, this is cool. My dad talks about, he remembers when the microwave first came out. They'd all stand around and look at the microwave like, oh, this is amazing. Right? It was at that point he said, man, we're going to be having flying cars in the next 25 years. We're still not
any
there,
day now.
Right?
Waiting for my hoverboard, man.
Right. Okay, so, but for us, the TV's no big deal.
Right.
My TV only comes on when there's something I want to watch. It's not on all the time. The microwave's not a big deal. Think about it. I go throw my Hot Pocket in. Actually, I don't eat that crap. But you know what I mean? Like, I go throw something and then, you know what I mean? And I don't even think about it. It's not something because I always grew up in a world where there was a TV and where there was a microwave.
Yeah.
These kids, and now let's talk about the smartphone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The smartphone, we're all glued to it. It's almost like an appendage, you know? Right? It's almost like an appendage now.
That's true.
I mean, we scroll. It's like, I mean, and these kids are growing up. It's going to be a big deal to them.
Right.
What I'm hoping happens, and there have been some early things out there that said that Gen Alpha may, like the younger Gen Alphas, may begin to reject technology.
Interesting.
I hope so.
Wow.
Because I'm praying for that or a solar flare. I don't know.
Right.
Can you imagine? I mean, if that would to be true, that would be radically different than the way even our generation growing as, you know, exiting like or into college age, late like high school, college age, and smartphones coming out mid college age, and getting consumed with that.
Right.
You know,
Yeah.
Could it be that there is a generation coming up that'd be like, maybe push back? I mean, what a thought.
Well, and you have to think, I mean, we can even say we're spending family time, but it's mom, dad, everybody in the living room, all on their cell phones.
Yeah.
And I guilty, right? I'm not throwing stones. I mean, I'm there. I'll be in my chair at night and I'll be checking emails or whatever. I've had my 2-year-old climb up onto my lap and push my phone out of my face to basically be like,
yeah,
pay attention to me, Dad.
Yeah.
Wow.
And this is the world they're growing up in. So they're going to grow up. I mean, we all have a hole, right?
Yeah.
The hole is for connectivity and community. It's to be seen.
Yeah.
Some of the most heartbreaking memes, right, are the memes or even the cartoons that people have drawn of the kid with the teddy bear that says, play with me, and mom and dad's on the phone.
Yeah.
Dude, that rips my heart out every time I see it.
Yeah.
Because even with my 7-year-old now, I've wondered how many opportunities I've missed because I didn't, something else had my attention.
Yeah.
And I remember we had a conversation a few weeks ago, about a month or so ago now. To circle back to, we're so busy. It's a word everybody likes to use. We're busy. I feel like the Lord started to work on my heart on this a couple months ago, and I'm still trying to put words to it exactly. But we say we're so busy, but I pose a question: are we any more busier than our grandparents and our parents were?
Yeah.
I would almost say we're probably less busy because technology has come so
easier.
I mean, it's made things easier.
Yeah, true.
And so we're always going to be busy. We're always going to have jobs. We're always going to have families. We're always going to have demands. But I felt like the Lord really hit my heart once and just said, it's not that you're too busy. It's because it's just the world's too noisy. Your world is too noisy. And when I started to go, okay, and so I remember at that time, like I'm on social media, but dude, I'm rarely on it. Like I've taken a lot of it off of my phone. I'm on Facebook right now because I have to be for my job. We have a private Facebook page and these things that I manage. But if I didn't have that, I don't think I'd even have Facebook. And I realized that like when I started to get off of those things, I stopped doom scrolling. I realized I had a lot more time because we sit there and say we're busy, but here's what happened. We all get lost in the scroll, right?
Yep.
We'll all be working and whatever. And I'll be like, oh, I'm just going to jump over to Facebook and look this person up real quick because I need to find, how to spell their name before I send the email out. And the next thing you know, 30 minutes have passed and you scrolled. Well, now I am busy because now I'm behind.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Point. Yep.
And so I think our world has become so noisy and so polluted. And not to mention, we go down the rabbit hole too of how much our souls were never meant to carry what we're carrying.
Absolutely.
The anxiety and the depression that we're seeing, our souls were not meant to carry what I said earlier with these students, the 24-hour news cycle and the bad news. I mean, it's this constant stream of information that is depressing and it is discouraging, and our souls were meant to carry it.
Well, and that's a really good observation, Ryan. And I'm circling back again to something else you talked about, like that adolescent age getting pushed out, like older and older. And I wonder if, while we can chuckle about that and be like, oh, that's silly. You're 28, 29, you should be a man now. But if these young people have grown up saturated with information to where we know, I mean, just like Psych 101 stuff, like basic child development, that adolescent their mind needs time and space to process the information, the new stuff that they're observing. And kids, it seems like today, they don't have time because they have all this excess information, noise, like you put it, right?
Right.
So if they can't process everything that's hitting them, how can they possibly mentally, emotionally, and spiritually mature?
Yeah.
It seems like it would be obvious that would delay that maturity process and then you've got maybe young adults into their late 20s who they haven't had the time to process through emotionally and evaluate psychologically a lot of the stuff that, when we were 8, 9, 10 and we were disconnected because we didn't have this tethered to us, that, what we had boredom.
Right.
Yeah.
Remember boredom? Where you go on a road trip and you weren't just glued to your device. You could actually stare out the window and think
and play the alphabet game.
Yeah. Or talk or just be quiet.
Yeah.
Right.
And figure out a lot of
or
stuff.
draw on your walls.
Or draw. Yeah, exactly right. Yeah.
Had the coolest room growing up.
Yeah,
I remember going to his house and his brother drawing Marvel comics all over.
Yeah,
the house.
we had really, my mom and dad were really understanding.
It's so cool.
So much grace.
But kids, man, they need that space to think.
100%.
And now we got kids, and you're touched on this, Ryan, where they can see the stuff happening all over the world. They're not even have time to figure out their own stuff.
Right.
And now they're inundated with other people's problems. There's no way they're going to be secure.
Yeah.
Because now a young adolescent wants to, in a healthy way, find out what are the limits? What's the boundaries? Where is security? That's that big, basic, important question that gets answered in adolescence. What is secure? Well, when they're seeing all this stuff all over, and they're trying to have to answer that question for everyone else, that seems like that would push their process out. And so I wonder, there's got to be a connection there, So, but then it begs a question: how do we help?
Well,
what do we do?
As you're talking and you're inundated with information,
right?
And when a kid is inundated with information and nobody to steer it into wisdom, it made me think of 1 Corinthians 4, right? Of Paul says, verse 15, for if you were to have countless tutors in Christ, yet you would not have many fathers. And then he starts talking about why he sent Timothy. So I think we come back to the discipleship thought process. There's tons of information. Yeah. So we as adults have to figure out, shout out Demon Hunter, how do we silence the world?
Yeah.
Right? But how do we shut that noise out? How do we filter through the fluff, prioritize our time, manage our time, be intentional with our kids, and then disciple them in Christ so that all of this information, all of this knowledge can grow into wisdom.
Right.
And it can grow into faith, right? And spiritual fathers is a key there. So but the discipleship model.
Right. Well, and so you said something and I brought something I've heard to mind. This generation has all the information, none of the life experiences to go on. So I remember growing up, my stepdad's an amazing mechanic. Just can do literally anything. He can fix cars. Matter of fact, before I came here, I had a battery issue and, I was going to go take care of it. Dude, he had that battery out, replaced and on with life and my battery's not easy to get to. It's behind all this stuff in a new car, right? Where before I remember you just go and undo the things and be gone. But and we were on 5 minutes done. And I remember he's got all this stuff. Dude, I couldn't work on a car to save my life right now. Why is that? I watched him do it my whole life. But I never had the tools in my own hands. Right. And so if our students have all the information, but there is no wisdom, there is nobody guiding them, there is nobody helping them. And so I have people ask me, right? Okay, well, because if you really think about it, up to this point, it's kind of been a depressing podcast, right? Because we've talked a lot about all of the issues, but we could redeem it really quickly. I think there's a couple things we have to really pay attention to. I think about in Judges, where it says that Joshua and all of his ancestors had died. And it said a generation grew up that did not know the Lord or the things that he had done for Israel. How does that happen?
Yeah.
Let's talk about the things that he did for Israel for just a quick minute. Parted the Red Sea, dropped food from heaven.
How about that?
Right? The pillar of cloud by day, the fire by night. One of my favorite stories, right, where when Moses had his hands up, right, they would win the battle. And how about the sun standing still? How about the Jordan River drying up when they had to cross it? How about the Jericho walls?
Yeah, man.
How does the next generation rise up and not know the Lord or the things he did for Israel?
Yeah, man.
It happens because the older generation stopped talking about it.
Yeah.
And so I ask this question to 35 and up all the time. When was the last time you shared your testimony with someone younger than you?
Yeah.
When was the last time you told someone younger than you what God has done for you?
Right.
As right now where I'm at in my life, my priorities have shifted. I know you guys are a little bit different phase of life than I am because you got kids that are older.
We're old.
Speak for yourself.
We're all about the same age,
Yeah.
but you guys just got to it quicker than I did, right?
Brian's being nice. He's calling us old.
Yeah.
That's
But I am clinging to people right now
Mm.
that have adult children that love Jesus.
Mm.
And I go, I just want to know what you did.
Yeah.
Can you teach me? Because that's my greatest priority right now, is that when my kids turn 18, that they love me, they love Jesus, and they love the church and the ministry I'm a part of.
Yeah.
If that's it, I don't care what they can do. They can do whatever they want to do with their lives and their careers. As long as those three things are good,
Yeah.
I'm going to feel like I did something right, but I want them to love Jesus. And so, but that's across the board. These young men, these kids that are 22 years old, 18 years old, 15 years old, 28 years old, they are hungry
Yeah.
for someone who's older than them to just sit down with them and tell them their story, just to sit down and have coffee with them. But we get in our heads, oh, well, I'm not cool enough. They don't want to hear from me. They don't think I'm the old fat guy. You know what I mean? Like, they don't, I mean, that's sometimes how we process it.
Yeah.
But I'm telling you, man, like, that's what this generation's hungry for. They're hungry for connection. I remember a few years back, I was watching youth camp, and it was 2019. We had the best year ever at that point, financially, numerically. I mean, overall was a really good year, and I left not happy. I left that camp season frustrated, and it didn't help that COVID was the next year, because I mean, that year almost did me in. Because I was wondering, what have we done? Have we missed this? Something's not connecting, and here's why I said that. Because at the end of the week, we don't do this anymore, but we would always ask, how many kids feel like they got called to ministry this week? And about 800 students at that time, only 8 students had raised their hands. Now listen, I don't believe that every kid should be called to ministry,
Right?
but it sure as heck has to be more than 1%. In that room, there has to be more than 1%. And so it made me go, okay, what's happening? There's something shifting here. I don't know. And we could talk about, we stopped talking about the call of God and all those things, but we made a shift. When we came back from COVID in 2021, I said, hey, we're going to go out on a limb. I remember we'd go to these revival services and conference services and camp services. Those would be 3 and 4 hour services. Back camp services when I was a kid, dude, if you were out of there for 1 o'clock, holy cow. Now these kids are done. And now we can say, oh, well, they need to learn to labor in the altar and all those things. Listen, they're not wired for it.
Yeah.
They're not neurologically wired for it. So what we quickly said is okay, we're going to do 25 minutes of worship. We're going to do 25 minutes of speaking tops. We're going to let God do whatever he wants to do in the altar. So if altar goes 25 minutes or altar goes 2 hours. Now, and I've been in services in the last couple of years that have done both. But we shifted the focus from that to small group time. And I remember when we took this risk, everybody thought, well, that's not going to work at camp. I'm like, it may not. I'll tell you right now, though, we had been in 2 weeks of camp for 57 years. When we shifted this, the next year we went to 3 weeks of camp. This year we're at 4 sold out weeks of camp. And we're seeing this happen, because here's what happens at a week of camp. Again, I'm a huge advocate for camp. A kid gets away from the noise, right?
Yeah.
But then you get them in small groups where we're very intentional about what we do with small groups. It's not just some college yahoo that gets to go do a small group. It's the youth pastor, and he's intentional with the sponsors that he's bringing into that. And they get to sit, whether it's in their dorm room or whatever, and they get to hear that person who's 10, 15 years their senior and learn from them and ask questions.
Yeah.
Hey, something weird happened to me at the altar today. I kind of spoke in a language I didn't understand. Well, instead of staring up your bed at night going, and the enemy's right here going, that was fake, that was fake, that was fake.
Or your friend that knows nothing.
Right. Oh, hey, the microphone, sorry. Now they get to sit in real time and process that with their youth pastor, their shepherd.
Yeah, that's great.
And so, okay, so when we talk about what is the answer, man, I think you have to get back to the basics. It has to be discipleship again.
Yeah.
It has to be not a program. It's not a book. It's not a class. We're going to do life with each other. I've been saying this lately, and this isn't probably the most popular thing to say. I'll tell you why I'm there. Churches have to shift. We are at mission critical at this point.
Mm.
And why I say that is ministers in the U.S., the average age is now 60 years old of the minister in the United States. It's the average age.
Wow.
In 1992, you know what it was?
35?
44.
Okay. Close.
But 16, now that
Yeah,
average age has now been pushed 16 years in
Wow.
30 years. Okay. Here's the frightening statistic. Ministers across all denominations right now in the United States of America, ministers under the age of 35. What do you think the percentage is?
2.
You're close.
3?
3.2.
Wow.
Dang.
That's a problem. Here's why it's a problem.
Yeah.
And this is why I say we're mission critical. Boomers are retiring when they can. That's another thing we've not seen in ministry before, because a lot of people didn't save for retirement, or they opted out of Social Security or whatever those things were, and so they couldn't. But all the boomers did. They saw the mistakes of the older generation, and so when they can retire, they're retiring.
Yeah.
68, whatever. Right now, we're dealing with something across, and it's not just in the AG. We're dealing with something called the youth pastor crisis. There aren't any. If a church loses their youth pastor, there's no one to replace them. They'll call me. Up until 2020, I was receiving 3 to 4 resumes a month. Since 2020, I think I've received 2 resumes. Our colleges aren't producing ministers anymore.
Yeah.
They're just not there. And so a pastor will call me and say, well, hey, I need a youth pastor. And I'll say, get in line. Because they aren't there anymore. And so if the ministers under 35 is 3.2%, it doesn't take a brain surgeon to understand if the boomers are retiring,
what's going to
happen.
happen.
Crisis today, in 10 years from now, there's a pastor crisis. We're going to shutter the doors of over a third of our churches across America because there will be nobody to pastor churches.
Yeah.
And it's something we have to address right now. And it starts in discipleship.
Yes. So let me ask you this. Do you think that, because I have a son that's 22, he's getting married in a few weeks here. Buying a house is an impossibility right now, right? The interest rates are not bad, but the prices never came down where they need to be. It's not like it once was. So with the youth pastor crisis, I think it's related to, you're not going to get rich in ministry.
Right.
And if you are, we need to question ministry maybe, or see what you do with those riches to balance that out there. But yeah, do you think that's related, the financial aspect of it?
I definitely think that's part of it. I think there's a couple things at play. Yes. And churches have to ante up and they have to pay people what they're worth.
Yeah.
I will say, yes, you're not going to get rich, but when I hear people brag about paying their youth pastor a $30,000 salary, I'm like, bro.
Yeah. No wonder you can't keep them.
Yeah, 100%. Who can make it on that with even their family? I mean, it's just not possible, not in the world we live in. So I think that is part of it. Yes, it's time for churches to go, okay, what is important? It's so funny. I read a tweet just 2 days ago that said all these top corporations, they pour all of their resources and money into younger people, fresh out of college, young staff. They want to develop them. But the church does the opposite. We pour all of our resources into the older generation and keeping them happy because they're the tithers, right? And so, again, I can play devil's advocate on both sides of these things, but we have to, that is part of it. I think the other part of it's this. We all grew up in the 90s and the early 2000s. And so I remember going to these conferences where it was like, everybody's getting called to ministry tonight, right? Well, that's not super healthy. Right. And so what happened was our generation that grew up and became youth pastors, so we didn't even talk about the call of God. Or we're not even going to talk about it. Like, we don't want to. I've actually been a part of conversations. I've heard youth pastors say, well, God may be calling you, possibly, it's maybe not, maybe you could always go to the marketplace. Well, yeah, but God is still calling people to full-time pastor. He's still calling missionaries. He's still calling people to youth ministry.
Yeah.
The problem is we're not listening, and but as leadership, we're not even creating spaces for that to happen.
Yeah.
And I think, again, it's because, and I'm going to say this, and again, it's just my opinion. I know I want you guys to get in trouble for this. But I would just say
open format, bro. Go.
Right. I think I'll say one big thing. Attractional church is dead. We spend so much time trying to create atmospheres, lights, and smoke. And listen, guilty as charged.
Yeah.
Coffee. Every church has a stinking coffee shop at this point. And it's so funny. It's mediocre coffee.
Yeah.
You know,
hey, you come here, you're getting Folgers. We're not going to lie.
Right. And so what's so funny is like we do all of these things to attract people, and we're canceling Sunday schools, we're canceling Wednesday nights, we're doing all this stuff, and we're putting all the eggs into the performance of Sunday basket.
Yeah.
And it's wrong. I'm sorry, nobody's getting discipled on Sunday morning.
No.
Not in the service anyway. Maybe if you have Sunday school. But in the service, it's not happening.
Yeah.
Because we've also done whatever we can to make it as short as possible.
Right.
Which, okay, again, I'm not throwing stones. I'm just being observant. I mean, I'm in 90 different churches throughout the year. Right?
Yeah.
We're just trying to get people in and out the door, but what's happening? Nobody's being discipled. We wonder why people are flaky. We wonder why there's not life change happening. Well, because church is what happens Monday through Saturday, not what happens on Sunday morning.
Right.
Sunday morning should be a byproduct of what's happening Monday through Saturday. And if you're actually doing what you're supposed to do as a church Monday through Saturday, your Sunday mornings will explode. We'll need to build new buildings to hold everybody because of the community and the actual disciple. I mean, it's a first century church.
Yeah.
And so that's what I say. I don't think the first place you should ever invite somebody is to church. If you're witnessing to a friend.
Oh, that's an internet hot take, and I love it.
Yeah.
But you should.
Spicy.
It's not. You shouldn't invite them to church. You should invite them to your home.
Yeah.
But that's messy. And that requires time.
Yeah.
And we're too busy.
Yeah.
Discipleship is messy.
Yeah.
I mean, the other question I ask is, when was the last time you had somebody in your home that was 10, 15, 20 years younger than you it's not a family member?
Yeah.
It's the last time that, we want to complain and throw stones at the younger generation and say, well, they don't know how to do nothing because all they are is on their phones. And, well, are we teaching them how to work with their hands? Are we teaching them how to work on cars? Yeah. Are we teaching them how to be carpenters and all of these things? And, well, no, I don't have time for that. Well, then you don't have time for discipleship. Listen, where we're at in the church right now, as I said, we're mission critical. Like, we don't have time not to do this. And if we don't quickly turn this ship around, I don't know. I don't know where we're at in 20 years from now.
Yeah.
I do have hope, though.
Yeah.
Generation Alpha and Gen Z, they're open to the gospel. They really are. But they can smell a fake from a mile away. If there's one thing I'm super glad that's gone away as a celebrity Christian pastor, I mean.
Oh, you haven't been on Instagram in a while.
Oh, I've been on that. What I'm saying, they're still out, but it's not the apex.
Right.
Back in like 2014, 2015, it was all like, you know what I mean? They were everywhere. And everybody was trying to copy them and be like them and all of that. And now this generation's like, bro, I don't care.
No, it's fraudulent looking, right?
Right.
And there's, I say that because I've been venting to him about some of the Instagram celebrity Christian influencer people. And there's some people I want to get on for that very reason. From appearances, it looks like you're fake as a $3 bill, right? It looks bad. I hope your heart's legitimate. I really hope your faith is real, because then you look at their number of followers and you look at the size of their church and you go, wow. But let me tie a neat little bow on all of it, because I think we've kind of hit all of the areas of, like, at the ground level, the discipleship, and whether it's in your own home or you're in ministry in the church, it has to be real and raw and messy, just like you said. Like, it's not just Sunday morning or even Sunday school. Yeah, good discipleship, but that's not all of it, right? The mission doesn't stop there. Whether it's small groups or one-on-one stuff, there has to be that. But you hit on something with asking questions, like with being able to ask the older generation questions. And that back to what Paul said about spiritual fathers, right? We need those spiritual fathers that were discipled up. So it's a process and it's a cycle. So we need to be pouring into the younger generation, building them up in the faith, allowing them to ask those questions. And honestly, so man, we've been giving Ethan a lot of shout outs lately. So lately in the youth group here at Crescent Lake, Pastor Ethan went to a deal of, here's our QR code, scan it. You got questions about the Bible, about faith, about all these things, ask them. And you know what? We're going to preach on that. We're going to talk about it. We're going to answer your questions. So he's had David come up and share, which was awesome because I planted a question for him on Sasquatch or Bigfoot or
the Nephilim.
The Nephilim. Yeah. So, and then I help out there anyway, but he's rotating us through there to let them. I think it's a better way to do church. Especially Wednesday night and youth group, things like that, a format. And the Sunday school I do for the teen boys, I've told them from the get-go, that's my format.
Right.
If I'm rambling on and you don't get it, just go, yo, hey, what? Ask the question, because I promise you 7 other guys around you are going, what? It's not going to be a dumb question. Let's ask it. Let's talk through it and process through it. And if it's beyond my understanding, man, I'm going to go find for you either someone or somewhere that we have that resource.
Right.
But we have to be open to that process of like, ask the question, learn.
Yeah. I mean, church has been built for the consumer. This generation, they're not as big of consumers as we were.
Yeah.
They're producers. They want to be involved in the process. Same with Gen Alpha too. They want to be involved in it. And a lot of times we overlook them. We think they're too young or they're this or that and the other. Man, I'm like, hey, let the kids get in the sound booth. Let the kid get behind the camera. Let the kid be a greeter or an usher. I mean, I'm not saying, let them preach every week, but start to allow them to be involved, because the other thing that happens is they begin to take ownership. They begin to feel like they belong, and everybody's looking for community. So I would just say, we got to wrap up, but a couple things to really make it easy is, number one, you have to proclaim truth.
Yeah.
This generation's hungry for truth. They really are. And the more we dance around it, the more they get turned off on it. We think that if we dance around truth and we won't offend them. I found out that they're okay being offended as long as you're okay with them asking lots of questions.
Yeah.
And so you better be on your game. But I've offended so many young people throughout the years, and I find out that as long as I'm continuing to be open and honest and transparent, that's a big deal. Dude, I think the days of pastors getting up and pretending like their lives are perfect and shiny and they're gone. Those days are gone. I remember when we went through what we went through with my oldest son, I was raw. And honestly, I used Facebook at that time as almost like a personal journal, yet partly because people wanted the updates, and I got so sick of it. Like, people would message me and call me, and people meant well. So I would just start word vomiting on Facebook to want to update people, but it helped me. Since that was 7 years ago, since that moment, I have had, to this day, I will still get people walk up to me from places, man, you showed me that ministers go through things too. And like, thank you for your transparency.
Nice.
I'm like, that's who we should be. We shouldn't be on pedestals. We put our pants on the same way. And the only thing ministers have is we're just going to get judged more harshly. Right.
Right.
Yeah.
And so put your pants on the same way everybody else does, and just get in the dirt with people, but proclaim truth. Number 2 is, be a disciple maker. Like, do life with people. Like, get in there, get them involved in your world. I remember a friend of ours, Jarrett Sykes. Dude, I remember he loved to skate, and he would take his skateboard down to the skate park, and he was discipling dudes on the skate park. And it was so cool to watch. I don't know if he still skates or not. I know he's gotten old like we've gotten old, but
he's gotten older than us.
Yeah, it's true. It's true.
We love you, Jarrett.
But you know what I mean? Like, and I still think he follows. I mean, but even then, like, I shout out to Jared again, because he still posts a lot about, he's a truck driver for the place that he works, and he talks about all these different people he's discipling, going in and out of these stores. He cares about them. He's doing life with them. He asks them questions, right? And he cares about them. It's not this, fakeness, right? And then the last thing is man, just don't give up.
Yeah.
Don't give up. And I circle back to what I mentioned earlier. One of my favorite stories in the Bible is when Joshua, who is the next generation, was in the battle. Moses, right? As long as he kept his hands up, they would win. And you remember, he was getting tired. We're all going to get tired. I've not found the fountain of youth yet. Camp is getting harder and harder and harder every year that I do it. So what happened is Aaron and her, they brought him a rock to sit on. He sat down on the rock, but what did he do? He still kept his hands up.
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of things to learn here. Number one, 3 things. Older generation, you don't want to give up, rest, but stay in the fight. Keep covering the younger generation.
Yeah.
Keep praying for them. Keep believing in them. Stand beside them. They'll win if you don't give up. Number 2, you got to have your family to do that, right? Aaron was his brother. He leaned on his brother, right? And his brother helped him hold his hands up. And then his friends helped him held his other hand up. So we need friends. We need our family. And the next generation needs us to keep them covering. And we need to rest. We need to rest when it's time to rest. But I think that, man, church is easy and discipling is easy. If you take all the formulas out of it, we try to formalize it for so long and try to fit it into a program, and it's just not worked. And now this is where we're at. Yeah. And we can turn the ship around, but it's going to take some real effort, some real awareness on our part to do it. It's funny. I don't know how many more years I have in Next Gen ministry.
Yeah.
I don't know that I'll be the 75-year-old youth pastor that I thought I was going to be. My heart is shifted in some areas, but my heart will always be the future church. And if I'm honest with you, is all of us should always care about the next generation.
Yes,
absolutely.
Because the next generation doesn't just mean young people. Really, we're the next generation of the people who are 50 and 60 right now.
Yeah. Yep.
And really, our next generation is Gen Z, but Gen Z's next generation is Gen Alpha. And as long as you live your whole life telling your story, this is what God has done for me. I go back to one of my favorite verses of Psalm 78:4. I will proclaim what God has done for me, right? For generations. That's the paraphrase version, right? That I will tell of what he's done. And I think that's it. We can't stop talking about what he's done for us.
Yeah. Tell your story, your testimony in Christ. So good, man. Yeah. Ryan, do you have a website that people can check out the ministry that you guys are doing?
Yeah, you can go to nomonextgen.org. That is our website. I actually went through a big transition right now, so we have a new admin, and so I've had to pick up a lot of slack. There might be some outdated stuff in there. I've tried to stay on top of it.
These pictures are from 77.
But yeah, if people are interested in the camps that we run, you can go there as well. We run 4 weeks of youth camp, 2 weeks of kids camp. It's awesome. We're seeing God do incredible things. Excited for what God's going to do this summer. We're going to Ecuador this summer as well. We're taking a group of 25 young adults and young people to Ecuador. A couple, I think Maddie, she's coming from Crescent Lake. And so it's just kind of fun to see what God's doing in that regard. So
awesome. Ryan, thank you so much for coming and joining us here. It's been so much fun. We appreciate it. Guys, that's a wrap for this episode of Deformed Theology. Thank you so much for tuning in. Click the subscribe and follow button. I can't say it enough. We're trying to build this thing, trying to have some more fun. Tune in next week. Appreciate you guys.